we're going to talk to Phil. Phil, who's calling in from Texas. Phil, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's going on?
You've interrupted my flow of thought. I have to tell you a goat, a horse, and a Catholic priest walk into a bar, and the bartender says, "What is this, a joke?"
That's good. I like that. I guess the theme today is just random jokes. Every caller has to have a joke. Every caller has to have a joke when they call in. So new rule.
Anyway. I love it. I wanted to talk to you about Senate Bill. I have it right here. Senate Bill 763 that would put chaplains in public schools. Do you know about this?
I read a headline, but I'll be honest, this is one. Usually I'm pretty good staying up to date on stuff so I can talk about on the show. This is one I do not know anything in detail on. So Phil, you'll have to tell me.
Yeah.
This totally got under my radar as well. Governor Greg Abbott signed this into law, or tried to sign it into law, on June 18th. And now, what the fuck is a chaplain? As I understood it, a chaplain was a person who was providing spiritual counseling for all persons of a spiritual, who had spiritual questions. Like a chaplain you find on an aircraft carrier or a prison or a spaceship. I don't know why we would need chaplains in schools.
Yeah, I guess what I think the role of a chaplain would be, and I don't know anything about chaplains. I know chaplains from
the
military.
chaplain expert.
Yeah, I'm not chaplain. When I was in the Boy Scouts, one of the positions you can be in your troop is troop chaplain. So that is a thing. So I guess I know from that. I was never chaplain, but I guess in Boy Scouts it was always to lead prayers, and it was always lead whatever religious ceremonies, because the Boy Scouts is a Christian organization. That's not always stated super clearly, but it is very Christian, and it is very overtly Christian. For my Eagle Scout ceremony, they ask you about your relationship with God and stuff in your interview process. Yeah, they asked me about what my relationship.
Who's that?
Well, I was still a Christian at the time.
Yeah.
So I was 17 when I got my Eagle Scout award, but you have to go through a board basically that kind of checks you out and sees if you're legit. And one of the questions they ask you is, do you believe in God, and what's your relationship like with that? So that's actually been challenged by some atheist Boy Scout people, but that was not my fight. Anyway, point is, right, what does a chaplain do? What is a chaplain supposed to do? I think you're right. It's supposed to, consult people in spiritual matters. Obviously, that's not going to do much for you and me. What can be replaced by that in a secular resource? A therapist, right? A school therapist that may be informed in religious traditions, right? Now, I totally understand if you're a Christian and you want to seek somebody from a Christian community for guidance. I think that's totally fair, and I think that's totally reasonable. I just don't think taxpayers should be paying that, right? I just don't think that should be going in public schools. Because are we going to have imams at schools as well? Are we going to have monks that teach us?
Please.
Go ahead, Phil.
Interrupt you. I've read through this bill 4 times, and they use the word employ, volunteer interchangeably. And it does seem to be the case that they are going to replace, or could replace, accredited school counselors with anybody who walks up and says, I'm a God guy. I can tell your kids. And who is making those decisions on like if I'm a Muslim or a Mormon or a Baha'i, could I come into my school and volunteer to be a counselor guy?
Yeah. It's definitely problematic.
Vague bill. It's an incredibly vague bill, and it disturbs me.
Yeah, I don't think you should be giving advice to kids in a professional setting, like in a school, unless you're credentialed in some way, right? I want my teachers to have teachers' degrees, or at least teacher certificates.
Yeah, I want bare minimum.
Yeah, I want my school nurses to actually be trained medically. I would want, if that were the case, if a chaplain or a therapist were to come on, I would want them to have some sort of background. But if it's just anybody can volunteer, yeah, that's pretty problematic. Because like, what if a kid's depressed and they go to a chaplain? It's like, oh, it's because you got demons in you, and we need to pray for the demons. Like, what, like that's not cool. I don't like that.
Yeah, I find this like
Exactly.
this whole thing like kind of it bugs me in the you have like because I'm already sensitive to this in the sense that like I had a friend who came down and visited me, and someone that he knew it was in the hospital that was unfortunately they ended up passing away. And so during the like kind of last moments in the hospital when they were there, they had, I guess it was a chaplain or whatever, they had a bunch of people just kind of almost force entry trying to pray in like these people's last moments. And when I had heard about that, it was just like so sickening that I can't even like the whole concept of this like attached to some secular, like I get it. Some people who might be part of some institution, hospital or whatever might like they might feel that they need that. Like I understand like what, I don't think that they have some ill intent, the person who would want that service or whatever. But I've just heard a lot of these stories that are used in such a negative way. That's like they're like vultures almost. And that's my fear, is this kind of vulture attitude of just kind of swooping in on people who are emotionally in this time. And I just view it like the people that pick the wrong book in the self-help aisle for, they pick the vultures book rather than someone who's genuinely there trying to like help them. And it's a gray line that it's hard for me to see the positive at all in that based on, the kind of experiences I've heard that are tangent to that.
Yeah. Phil, what do you think?
Well, all of that is true and accurate, and I have very little to add to it. But I did want to segue to another thing. Why are there so few scholarships for skeptics and atheists and freethinkers?
It's a good question. I don't know. I guess because it's hard to already be out. It's another thing to be like, I'm going to put a bunch of money towards this thing. I mean, I know there's some and they definitely exist, but there's also just not a lot of secular groups in general. Like there's tons of Christian organizations that are willing to put money towards like scholarships. There's just not as many secular groups, that are willing to put up that kind of cash. So it is unfortunate.
I will give the ACA $1,000 tomorrow if somebody will match that grant to do a essay contest for skeptical humanist thinking.
You know what?
That tomorrow.
I like that, Phil. I'm not the guy in charge that can make that decision and say, okay, the ACA is going to match that. But if you email the show, if you do TV at atheist-community, that can be forwarded to the board of directors, and they could actually do something about that if you're interested. So that's a very cool idea.
Well, I think challenging young people to think for themselves and learn some science, and some skepticism, and I think that's a great thing. And I'm thoroughly disappointed that we haven't done this more as a community.
You're probably that's a good point. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like we're all about material help in the world, right? Like when somebody's in need of something, we're not just going to pray for them, right? We're going to actively do something. And part of that just means money, right? Giving money to people who need it, especially for academic achievements. So yeah, I'm all for it, Phil. I think it's a great idea.
Yes, for education.
Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
Yes. These are the next generation that will save the world.
I hope so.
I
hope so. Phil, I think it's a great idea. I think, again, you should email the board about that and see if you can make something happen. No promises, obviously. And I'm not on the board, for the record. I can't tell you, yes, we can do this. But that'd be something that they would vote on if they're interested in. So, yeah, it's very cool, Phil. I like that.
I totally appreciate that. I totally appreciate that response. And if anybody can match my grant, I'll double it.
I like this. Phil, what do you do private donations? Because I could use an extra bit. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna do anything like that. But no, Phil, that's a great idea. That's very sweet of you to offer something like that. I hope something comes through.
I would love to meet you. You're a wonderful fellow. I will buy you a Conan's pizza.
Okay, maybe I can accept that. I don't know. But regardless, Phil, if you ever are in the Austin area, I am usually hosting. Actually, I'm hosting on Sunday this weekend. So all us ACA hosts are around, and we're about. So, but don't feel like you have to buy me anything. That's I wouldn't like that. But Phil, thanks so much for calling in. I'm gonna go ahead and let you go now. But it was a great topic.
You guys are the greatest. You guys are the greatest.
Thanks, Phil.
Thank you for your time.
We appreciate it.
Thank you for that call. Thank you.
What a nice offer there. That's very generous.
Very generous.
But I like that. We the ACA does does sponsor other activities. Has done all kinds of stuff. I don't see why a scholarship could be out of the question. Now, of course, actually making a scholarship, right, and having it be like legally sound and having the right, that's work. And all on our board of directors, they're all volunteers, right? It's being on a board at the ACA is not a paid position. So, I don't want to say, oh yeah, we're going to do this, cause that's their time. I don't want to volunteer other people's time, right? I want them to volunteer themselves. But, that is a cool idea. Definitely. And I could definitely see us doing something like